guys, welcome back to my channel and Happy New Year! It's been a minute since you've seen me on here. I want to say welcome back to all my OG subscribers and welcome to all my new subscribers. There's a ton of you who have been just subscribing to my channel while I've been away. I don't know how that's happened, if YouTube is just recommending my videos or you found me through another platform, but I'm really happy that you've joined the fam gang. Welcome on board. So this channel, if you are new, is about beauty, lifestyle, fashion, everything kind of rolled into one. Basically anything that kind of makes up Olivia. And this year we are instituting a new video schedule. So videos will be going up every Wednesday morning, so please make sure to turn on your notification bell if you haven't already, because then you'll get notified that a new video has gone up. We'll start off with the Friday. Last year we were doing Wednesday, Friday, and then I fell off somewhere in the middle and it was just a little bit too much to keep up with. So I've decided that we're starting off with just one day a week on Friday. It'll be a fantastic way to start off your weekend. We can just hang out, chat about whatever. And then we'll see how that goes during the year. So, today's video. 2019 and lessons that I've learned for 2020. I don't even know what I'm going to call this video, but I think I have to include, but did you die though? Because 2019 honestly was the year of, but did you die? I think almost everybody in my close circle has gone through some madness in 2019. And somehow we've managed to cross over into 2020. We're still alive, we're still kicking. But I was having a bit of a reflection moment at the beginning of this year and was like, okay, I've gone through all these things in 2019. What have I learned from those things? And how will that change how I do things in 2020? How will that impact me going forward? I think having that moment of reflection is really, really important in life. Just taking a minute to breathe, evaluate the situation, and then trying to put a spin on it or trying to, just rationalize it and move forward from that with the lessons that you've learned, whether you've had a good experience or you've had a bad experience. That's kind of going to be what this video is about. 2019 may have kicked your ass like it did mine, but we move. Okay, so I am going to start off with my eyebrows, which I rarely do, but it's because I wanted to show you this. And this is the Colourpop Precision Brow Pencil. I have been loving this pencil. Believe it or not, I haven't desired or had a feeling that I needed to try out one of these type of pencils. Almost every brand has one, but I've just been like, no, I like my gel or I like my pencil. I've been using this and now I don't think I can go back to anything else, because also it has a spoolie on the end. It's amazing. So the colour that I'm using is Banging Brunette. It does also come in a bit of a darker colour, but because I cut my hair off and dyed it, I'm using this particular shade. So actually what I need to do first is just to dust my eyebrows, just to make sure that everything sets in place and remains there for the day. I've already put on my sunscreen and a little bit of primer on my brows. So 2019 was really just that year, right? I feel as though it was a really big year of transition for me in many ways. But because you guys know that I had my daughter, I was going to say last year, but in 2018 in October, towards the end of October. So the end of 2018 was definitely just kind of a blur, not even understanding what the hell's going on. I don't know what day it is. Going into 2019, I think I was starting to kind of come out of that immediate funk and craziness and kind of delirium that you have when you've just had a new baby, particularly when it's your first baby, and kind of just going into 2019, in new year, la la la. But motherhood is not easy, y'all. Having a baby and trying to keep her alive and trying to keep yourself sane and trying to make sure that you have enough milk and trying to make sure, it's a lot. So the year was definitely one of transition in that way, but it was a transition in several other ways. So it was a transition in the fact that I had to go back to work after a couple of months. Star asterisk, our maternity leave cover is horrendous. So just as you're trying to get your sanity back, after 15 weeks, you are shoved right back into work. And for me, it was particularly challenging because I didn't have enough milk of my own to kind of feed my baby throughout the day. And just as I was approaching maternity leave, we had almost hit the peak where it was like most of her food was coming from me, and then we would supplement a little bit with formula. That going back to work jacked everything the hell up. Everything went left. My milk supply dried up pretty fast despite my efforts to pump and eat all the cookies with like oats in or whatever, drink all the fenugreek seeds that I could. I was sending myself crazy trying to basically produce enough milk. And of course that has an effect, I think, on your mental health and how you feel in terms of worth as a woman, because you feel like, and not as a woman, but particularly as a mother, because you feel like you should be able to do these things. This is something that your body is designed for. This is something that you should be able to give to your baby, and you love this little thing so much. And you can't do that for her in the way that you would have wanted to if you could choose to. So that was really difficult. So then going back into work for me was also an interesting experience because my boss was proceeding on her maternity leave. Actually, I finished my maternity leave about 2 weeks early because she had to go on hers and we had to do a handover. So it was like there was no time for us even to sit in the office. I think we had like a 2-day handover, which is ridiculous after somebody's been away from the office for like 4 months. And so I was thrust back into work, back into my role, which, when you've been away from it for a few months, it takes you a while to get back into, but then also acting up her position. So I was basically juggling 2 roles, plus a new baby, and then plus trying to be, a wonderful wife, plus trying also to run a business on the side, plus trying to, anyway, all of this is to say that it was extremely, extremely overwhelming. The problem with a personality like mine, if you have one like mine, where you feel like you have so many ideas, you can do this, and you're very used to being capable, is that one, you don't tell anybody that you're kind of sinking under that pressure. For you, it's like, I can do this. Yeah, I can work 2 jobs. I can take care of this baby. I can make sure that I'm sane enough to be in the right mind to make all this milk. I can, do all these things. And the truth is, you can't. You really can't. And I learned a really big lesson last year in just being like, you can't do it all. Right, so I'm going to go in and clean up under my eyebrows. And I'm using this new concealer by e.l.f. New to the channel, not new in real life. Is the 16-hour Camo concealer, and this is the shade Deep Chestnut. It's quite a bright shade, but I'm just going to do this first and then we can come back and continue chatting. So I'm going to start on my eyeshadow, and I'm going to go into this Warrior palette by Juvia's Place, and I'm using the shade Camo, which is that kind of honeyed brown. So basically my takeaway from last year and trying to do it all and failing terribly is you are not Superwoman. Yeah, you don't have to be the person that's here juggling X amount of things, because the result of that can be that you then end up just feeling like crap and you end up feeling like a failure because you haven't managed to achieve all of these things. That's not to say that you shouldn't have, goals for yourself in life, that you shouldn't have ambitious things that you want to achieve, because I'm a very ambitious person as well myself, There are things that I would want to achieve and I kind of, you know, go out there and try to get them. But also, especially when you're transitioning through a phase of doing so many new things as I was, or having taken a break from something and kind of come back so that it is kind of new in a way, you know, maybe just have 2 things that you want to tackle that are new in that period of time instead of 5 things, because you will focus on those new things and the new things will overwhelm you, and then you won't be able even to do the things that you used to be able to do and do quite well. You won't be able to do them either. So then everybody loses. So you're not Superwoman. Reevaluate, pick your top priorities, strategize, and then move forward. Ooh, thing number 2 that 2019 taught me: procrastination will get you nowhere. Procrastination, I think, is a big challenge for a lot of us. Putting things off, not starting things, having too many ideas and just never getting started on something. I think not getting started on things, and particularly for creatives. So if you are a creative person like I am, you'll find that most of the time you are obsessed with perfection. You want things to be just so, you want things to be just right, you want things to, all the conditions to have aligned, the stars to have aligned so that you can begin your process, because what you have going on in your mind is this brilliant idea of something, but what you have in reality is not that. So you're waiting for all the conditions to like speed up and catch up to this idea before you can present yourself to the world. What that means is then that you just procrastinate on everything. You have these wonderful ideas and then you're just like, oh no, I can't start it until this. You give excuses. Oh, I can't start it until I have this particular thing. Oh no, I can't do that until this other thing comes in because this has to go before this, and da 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 da. Oh my God, if that is not speaking my truth, I don't know what is. And I think it's something that I have not suffered with, but something that has been afflicting the way that I work for the longest time. Because it's that whole concept of having these brilliant ideas in your mind and not getting started. But you know what is real? And you know what really bites? If you would have started at the same time as the people who just got going, got started without the perfection, without those things kind of holding them down, you would be as far, if not further, because you have, according to you, these amazing ideas. It's the reason why I didn't start my YouTube channel for 3-4 years. It's the reason I didn't start selling makeup for 2-3 years. It's the reason I haven't started vlogging for 2 years. There's just so much that I wanted to do with life, and because I'm obsessed with this idea of things being perfect, it really does hinder. So for 2020, my kind of lesson that I learned going forward and how I'm gonna try and approach things is just do it. Just start where you are with what you have. The rest will catch up along the way. Because if you have a good idea, people will buy into that, and it will just start moving and generating on its own. So I want to encourage you as well, if you feel like you're in a similar position, then just get it moving, just get it started. Everything else will align and catch up on the way. And it's amazing because I give people that advice all the time, but in my own life, I do nothing. But this year I'm just going to start doing things. I'm just going to get started, because start small and work your way from there. And something that I also learned, sometimes when you have like a really, really grand idea and you're like, I'm waiting for this, this and this and this to kick in. If you would have started when you had something small, you would have learnt so much along the way, because inevitably you're going to make mistakes. Inevitably things are going to go wrong, and those are going to be things that you learn from. So if you jump in with this massive investment, this big concept, this la la la, and you've waited so long for this to kick off, you've missed out on the experience of having done the thing at a smaller scale to figure out what works, what doesn't work before you can kind of like scale it up to a bigger concept. So 2020, do that. The thing that I learned in 2019 was to seek help. That's a very big thing for me to talk about because I am not a help seeker in any way, shape or form. I usually tell people that if I'm going through a problem, I personally have to self-rationalize. So I sit with myself and I think about the issue and I look at it this way and I look at it that way and I kind of almost reach a decision on what it is that I want to do. Then maybe I'll let somebody in on what it is that I'm struggling with, what it is that I'm thinking. What I've learned is that sometimes all the answers are not with you. You are not the be all and end all of the knowledge. You don't have all the answers to all the problems. And sometimes you don't have the best ideas. You don't know everything that there is to know about something. I think the combination of the stress that I was having of being a new mum and trying to be perfect and, you know, do all of that, that comes with the mummy guilt and all of that stuff, going back to work and traveling really soon, right after going back to work. Plus, coupled with trying to juggle all these different hats that I'm wearing. I mean, things just kind of get overwhelming. And if you are a person that kind of sits within your own head, the anxiety is real. I'm not an anxious person by default. Generally, issues come, but I try to look at them in a better way. And even if I do feel like a little bit of anxiety, it typically can dissipate. What I found in 2019 is that anxiety was just sitting. It was like a pit in the bottom of my stomach, and it took me a while actually to identify what that was. Why my moods were kind of up and down all the time, why I was feeling less creative, why I didn't have as much drive to do the things that I usually enjoy. It was because of that underlying anxiety. And I know as like Africans, we don't typically want to talk about mental health, but this is a mental health issue. Everybody goes through anxiety, but it shouldn't be something that kind of sticks around. It shouldn't be something that kind of grips you and doesn't allow you to do the things that you do. I'm not talking about necessarily crippling anxiety because there is a spectrum. That's quite extreme. I was nowhere near that level of anxiety. I was still functioning. But I think having that kind of feeling of things aren't going well and I'm not able to manage it all, but I do want to be able to manage it all, and I'm still within my own head because I'm trying to fix everything or rationalize everything with my own ideas and how I think that they should be presented or handled. That can be a sliding slope. So being able to recognize that, seeing those changes in yourself because you do know yourself very well, and then going, hey, I need help. Help me. So one big thing that I did for myself in 2019 was start therapy. Right towards the end of the year, because as I say, this wasn't something that I immediately noticed that I needed help with or even recognized in terms of the feelings that I was having. But towards the end of the year, I started to notice that those feelings were kind of amplified, and in terms of like peaks and troughs and having those feelings coming and going, the cycle between them was a lot shorter. So I was like, that's not me. This is not who I am. I can't do this anymore. Let me go and get some help. And getting that therapy and starting that process, because it is a journey, it's not just something that you do overnight and you're done, really does help in terms of offloading. Having somebody else look at your problem and help you rationalize it and help you work through it and see how you feel about certain feelings, and giving you strategies for being able to tackle those things. So it's something that I'm going to continue all the way through 2020. I think it's something that if you have the means to do so, look for that help. It's really, really been, I think, beneficial for me so far, even in the short amount of sessions that I've had. and knowing that that is a mechanism that I can fall back on and use would totally guarantee it for anybody. Alright, we're going to move on to base now, and I am using the NYX Born to Glow foundation. If you follow me on Instagram, then you saw in November that I was in France for work, and I picked up this foundation because the American YouTuber Too Much Mouth talked about this. She loved it. She was like, it's great for oily skin. I was like, okay, let me try this, because anything that says glow usually freaks us oily skin girls out, because you think that means that it's going to be like dewy and slippy and slidey. It's not. This is amazing, and this is in the shade Mocha. So I'm just going to dab that all over my face and then blend that in. So actually I picked up two shades of this foundation. So this is Mocha, and I initially picked up the shade Deep, which is a bit darker, and I thought Deep was my shade because immediately I put it on, it looked like it blended into my skin. But this foundation does oxidize, so it gets deeper, or rather it dries down darker once it's settled in. So it gets deeper once you've applied it, which means that when I put on that Deep and let it dry down, I looked like, I don't know, I looked like I had hyperpigmentation, like my face looked so dark. So now what I actually do is use Mocha all over my face, and then I use Deep for a little bit of bronzing on my face. But I think I could use Deep, like say for example, if I'd been at the coast or something and then picked up like a tan and my skin was darker, then I would use Deep all over my face. But for now, I use it as a bronzer. And I use a stippling brush like this to apply it, because I want it to kind of be like sheer and diffused and blended in, rather than a big hard line. Can you see the difference in the colours there? I don't know if you can, but in my mirror I can see that. So one of the big things that I learned in 2019 was to be more selfish. And in terms of being selfish, I mean in terms of the relationships that you have, being, you know, whether it be a friendship, whether it be a romantic relationship, just kind of putting yourself first sometimes. Because I had a really good friendship breakdown. I don't know if I want to call it breakdown, but deteriorate in 2019, and not for lack of trying, not for lack of putting myself out there, not for lack of seeking somebody out, not for lack of trying to be understanding. And you know what you figure out is that the moment you do start being selfish and you're like, okay, I'm not going to be out here looking for you all the time. Let's see how often you look out for me. When the shoe's on the other foot and you realize that somebody isn't going to do that for you, then you start to realize, what kind of games were we playing? Because I thought we were out here for each other. Meaning if I'm not checking for you, you're not actually going to check for me? Really? So I kind of went through an experience that was similar to that. And that just showed me that, like, put yourself first. Put yourself first. Don't go checking for that person who you're always checking for. And the minute they show you, and you know, they will reveal themselves, and that's exactly what happened. And of course people on the other side, and of course there's always, like, you know, two sides to a story and how another person perceives it. But I'm also very much one of these people where I've seen you for what you are, and I've given you a chance for you to rectify it, and you don't. To the left. Like, I have left the chat, I have gone, because I cannot be here pouring myself into somebody and they are not reciprocating that back. Not that all relationships have to be an equal balance, but just if the energy's off, I don't want it. If the energy's off, I don't want it. And I'm not going to kill myself to try and maintain something for nostalgia, maintain something for the sake of it, especially when the other person doesn't seem pressed at all. At all. So that was a choice that I made for myself in 2019. And I think I'm just going to carry that energy into 2020 because I really haven't got time to be putting myself out there for other people when they're not willing to do the same for me. And relationships, by the way, and I always say this to people, relationships should be beneficial for both sides. There should be something that you are getting out of a friendship, of a romantic relationship, of a parent-child relationship. It has to be fulfilling. If you're not getting anything back, then what are you doing there? What is that? Relationship is supposed to be two-way. If you're the only one looking for somebody, if you're the only one checking for them, if you're the only one going out of your way to try and make sure that things happen, and that other person is kind of just like on the back seat, and the moment you don't take the driving, they're chilling, they're never checking for you, leave it alone. Leave it alone. It's not a must, and you won't die because of it. So, I mean, as you can tell, that was definitely something that was painful for me in 2019, and I think it's still painful for me now, even in 2020. I mean, you don't get over that kind of hurt like immediately, but it's something that I will just continue to work through until I've completely gotten over it entirely. But just to say that sometimes put yourself first and see what will happen. I think the reason it was so painful was because I was going through such a difficult time last year in so many different parameters of my life, and I needed that shoulder, I needed that friendship, I needed that person to come through for me in that time, and they didn't. And that's cool because it's heartbreaking, yes, but it's cool because then that allows me to know where I stand, and then it allows me to work my way out of that situation and move on, rather than continue under this pretense where you think that where you think that things are great, but really they're not. Yeah, so check for yourself, put yourself first in some ways, and as another friend of mine says, you respect yourself. So I just set my face with the Laura Mercier powder, the medium deep translucent. So I'm just going to go in with some bronzer, powder bronzer, to warm up my face, and I'm using the Covergirl Full Spectrum Bronzer. You guys have seen this on my channel before. It is completely shattered. I made the mistake of allowing my daughter into this room where all my makeup is, and she trashed the place. Alright, well, she trashed a few things, including dropping my Laura Mercier powder. A massive proportion of that fell out, including dropping this powder on the floor. I think there's a thing for powders. She also dropped another loose powder all over the floor. I mean, she was having a field day. Alright, so that brings me to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed getting ready with me and hearing a little bit about my 2019 and kind of like lessons that I've learned in terms of reflections for 2020. I would be really interested to hear about your reflections, what you've been thinking, what you've learned, and what you're taking with you into this new year and this new decade. So drop me a comment down below. If you've made it this far and you haven't subscribed already, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and follow me on over on Instagram if you haven't already. Otherwise, I'll see you in my next video.